Welcome to R&R Living Life. In this episode, Rick and I make our way to Karumba, where we camp for a couple of days. We cross floodplains of the Flinders River, the longest river in Queensland. By now we had quite a few spots and a huge crack in the windscreen, as well as the tall pea bushes along the road, so dodging them became a mission. I find it fascinating finding out the places we visit, as there is so much out there to learn about this great country we live in, and I suppose I want to share just how remarkable the places are that we visit. It is so much more than good swimming holes, waterfalls, and all those sightseeing places. The countryside we see is impressive and evokes a strong sense of wonder. The tranquility, unspoiled natural beauty we have found while travelling in these sometimes remote and often secluded landscapes is often unimagined. We left Bang Bang early. Driving down the jump up was incredible, the floodplain stretching out before us. I have had to go back to yesterday as we passed Cowan Downs to fully understand the country we were travelling through. To the east of Cowan Downs, the Concarry River, Sandy Creeks, Flinders and Saxby rivers flow past the station to create a massive area of flood country. From there, around Donner's Hill, the Concarry and Flinders rivers join, continuing on past Wandoola before joining with the Saxby just south of Warrenvale. As we left Bang Bang Jump Up, the rivers narrow, constricted by the Norman watershed near Glencore Yards, and form a huge floodplain of anna branches, braided channels and smaller channels. The amount of pea bush along the road was staggering, as were the number of brolgas we saw hidden amongst the tall bushes. East of Bang Bang Jump Up is Wandoola, where the broad floodplains act like a large sump. There is little east-west slope, and the narrowing of the river systems caused the floodwater to slow and deposit sediments across the floodplains. Here, local rains can drain to the east or west, depending on which channels are empty enough to carry the water. Local water and floodways will drain away very slowly, particularly when the Saxby, Flinders and Concarry rivers are in flood. In 2019, with a huge swathe of pastoral land stretching from Hughenden in the east to Concarry in the west, a distance of more than 400 kilometres, was largely underwater. Low-lying areas were in places were 3 metres of water, and major river systems like the Flinders stretched from horizon to horizon from the air. 400 kilometres, you say? If you say it quickly, it doesn't sound like much. But to put it in perspective, that's further than the distance between Townsville and Hughenden in Queensland. The Flinders catchment begins south of Julia Creek and Maxwellton, is shaped like a large funnel. About 90,000 square kilometres of upstream country has to drain through 12,500 square kilometres of floodplain. Local floodwaters can act like a dam when upstream waters arrive, meaning that local waters move and drain more slowly. We passed Warrenvale and then crossed the lower Flinders River at Walker's Bend, where the bridge sits at 5.4 metres. The area has a bush camp on the northeastern side of the bridge, though I wouldn't try camping there when there has been rain. The surrounding area is covered with eucalypts, including Red River gums, coolabahs with some bauhinia and wattles. Prickly acacia, rubber vine, Nagura burr and conky apples, all invasive species, can also be found in the area, while riparian grasses including native couch can be found on the sandy loams adjacent the channels. We were now on the other side of the river, making our way to Normanton. The Flinders River, just over 1,000 kilometres long, rises west of the Great Dividing Range in the Burra Range, 110 kilometres northeast of Hughenden, and flows initially in a westerly direction towards Julia Creek, before flowing in a generally northwest direction to the vast savanna country downstream of Kenobi, before it passes through a delta formed with the outflow of the Gregory and Leichhardt rivers about 25 kilometres west of Karumba. The total catchment of the Flinders River is around 109,000 square kilometres, with 36 tributaries. When in flood, the broad floodplains of the Flinders can stretch up to 60 kilometres wide. Around 110 kilometres from Bang Bang, we arrived at Normanton, a small cattle town in the Carpentaria Shire, which stretches from the Mitchell River in the east to the Leichhardt River in the west. The town was established in 1867 on the Norman River by William Landsborough, and was the port for the Croydon Gold Rush and a terminus of the Normanton railway station. Normanton is the second oldest town in the Gulf and grew slowly until the discovery of gold at Croydon in 1885, providing a major boost to the town, attracting people from a variety of cultures, including Chinese drawn to the goldfields. Like other towns in the Gulf country, Chinese men often supplied local vegetables from their market gardens. Although Normanton appears to have had some Chinese gardens very early in its history, with reference in 1873 to the gardens, their homes and livestock, all evidence has been swept away. Along the main street, Landsborough Street, there were quite a few heritage-listed sites reflecting Normanton's history. 30 sites in all we were to find out, including the Normanton railway station with its well-preserved Victorian architecture, complete with a museum, original rolling stock, and the famous Golflander, which still travels the line between Normanton and Croydon. We checked out the life-size immortalised replica of Cry's the Savannah King, a 8.63 metres saltwater crocodile, the largest crocodile on record ever killed or captured, that hunter Christina Pawlowski killed on the banks of the Norman River in 1957. On our way out of town, we passed the Burns Phillip building, the oldest intact Burns Phillip store in Queensland. That we will leave for next episode as we return back to Normanton. Before the Norman Bridge was built, vehicles were ferried across the Norman River by punt. In the late 1880s, a winch-type punt was used for several years before being replaced by a diesel-operated punt. We followed the double-lane bitumen road past Buttonhole Wetlands, a series of diverse and complex freshwater and estuarine wetland habitats that extend inland for approximately 30 kilometres. The wetlands cover an area of nearly 8,000 hectares and is the largest continuous wetland area in northern Queensland. These meandering saltwater tidal estuaries are the habitat of saltwater crocodiles and many bird species, including pelicans, brolgas and black swans, that can often be seen as they graze on the mud and weeds along with the masses of gorgeous water lilies that seem to hover above the surface of the water. We crossed Corduroy Creek, a flood-prone waterway located on the Burke Development Road, approximately 3 kilometres north of Normanton, where in the early days the shallow stretches of the Norman River were crossed by a corduroy crossing, a bridge built over a swampy or unstable ground by laying logs or branches or timber side by side, perpendicular to the path of travel. Historically used for horse-drawn wagons and early automobiles, this technique prevents vehicles from sinking into the mud. Now replaced by a built-up section of road, with reports of the logs of the corduroy crossing still traversable, though often affected by seasonal flooding. We were now about 70 kilometres away from our destination for the day, where we hoped to see a spectacular fiery sunset as the sun sinks into the Gulf of Carpentaria, and the coastal plains teeming with rare migratory birds was waiting for us. About 30 kilometres north of Normanton, we crossed the bridge over Walker's Creek, a tributary of the Flinders River. My mind boggled with the amount of water that covers the bridge when in flood. The main channel bridge sits at 5.4 metres, and floodwaters can reach 3 metres above the bridge level, closing the road for weeks. The closer to Karumba we got, we began crossing the Gulf Plains bioregion that hugs the Gulf of Carpentaria and includes the towns of Burketown, Normanton, Karumba and Doomadgee, characterised by extensive alluvial plains and coastal areas. The main river flowing into the Gulf of Carpentaria at Karumba is the Normanton River, which serves as the town's main waterway, port and fishing hub. We passed Maggieville, situated roughly 7 kilometres from Brannigan Creek, an outstation and pastoral property, part of a 390,000 hectare aggregation of 3 Indigenous properties along with Delta and Karumba Downs, that are all managed together. Brannigan Creek is a significant tidal waterway that enters the Gulf 20 kilometres north of Karumba. The land surrounding the Gulf is generally flat and low-lying and supports the world's largest intact savanna woodlands as well as native grasslands known as the Carpentaria tropical savanna. The tropical and subtropical grasslands, savanna and shrublands dominated by eucalypts, tea tree, open woodlands and melaleuca species supports a range of ecosystems and provides habitats for numerous species. The region's unique landscape has been shaped by ancient marine and river deposits, contributing to its ecological significance. The Gulf is a rare modern example of an epicontinental sea, a shallow sea on top of a continent, a feature much commoner at earlier times in the Earth's geologic history. About 40 kilometres from Karumba, we crossed Walker's Creek and then left the Burke Development Road and continued on the Karumba Road, where we came to an area known as the Karumba Plains, part of the Gulf Plains bioregion, also comprising of low-lying coastal plains where several river systems meet. The Norman, Boyno and Flinders meet in the southeastern corner of the Gulf, south of Karumba. What an amazing sight! The saline mudflats, grasslands, freshwater wetlands and woodlands was staggering as they disappeared into the shimmering horizon. So many brolgas. I had only seen one other place where flocks in such huge numbers were, and that was in central Queensland on a crop of sorghum, though here I must admit they were spread out across the plains in small dances or flocks. The brolga is a common sociable wetland bird species of tropical and southeastern Australia. Their diet is omnivorous and includes plant matter, invertebrates and small vertebrates. We saw quite a few juvenile birds that differ from adults by lacking the bright red bare skin on their heads while possessing fully feathered grey heads. We had crossed Jenny Lynn Creek, a tributary of Walker Creek that flows into the Norman River that often causes significant fast-acting flash flooding. At the time of compiling this episode, the area was experiencing severe flooding, with reports of inland sea conditions. As I shuffle through all my photos, it is hard to get my head around the vast amount of water needed to cover these plains. But that is just what is happening to the country during the wet season around the Gulf. We arrived in Karumba and set up camp at Karumba Point. Karumba is situated on the mouth of the Norman River and it is described by locals as an outback by the sea. The following day we set out to explore Karumba and Karumba Point, separated by about 8 kilometres. At the mouth of the Norman River, the area features extensive mangrove systems, salt marshes and tidal wetlands, attracting diverse bird life and saltwater crocodiles, though we didn't see any crocodiles, but that didn't mean that they weren't there. The Norman River originates in the Gregory Range, 200 kilometres southeast of Croydon, and flows 420 kilometres, flowing through Normanton before entering the Gulf here at Karumba. The town enjoys the distinction of being the only town along the southern Gulf of Carpentaria that is within sight of the Gulf itself, as the Gulf's extensive tidal flats prohibit settlements anywhere else along its shores. The port of Karumba is around the mouth of the Norman River, where it enters the Gulf of Carpentaria, used for the export of minerals, seafood and cattle, and for the import of goods needed by local communities. The first live cattle transport from Karumba were in the 1900s. During World War II, exports ceased and then started again in the 1950s. Unfortunately, the live export trade ceased in July 2015, following years of inactivity after the closure of Centenary Mine, which ended regular dredging of the port. The last live export vessel left Karumba in July 2019, marking a significant decline in the port's live export capabilities. Dredging issues and the need for infrastructure improvements are needed if live exports are to resume. The prawn industry revolves around a seasonal boom and bust cycle, specialising in banana and tiger prawns, with Karumba a pivotal hub for Australia's commercial prawn industry, established in the 1960s. Approximately 52 boats trawl for banana prawns in the Gulf waters that operate from the northern prawn fishery based out of Karumba. Wild-caught banana prawns are highly sought after. We visited the Karumba boat ramp, where the large concrete pad was built by the Royal Australian Air Force as a spillway in the early 1940s to get Catalina and the short Sunderland aircraft in and out of the water when Karumba was a base for the famous Empire flying boats on their trek from Australia to England. Near the boat ramp was Sunderland Park, where the town centre path looks out at the Norman River. We enjoyed the beautiful scenery along the edge of the river, the boats and the wharf. A special walking path has been created between the two settlements, taking you past the mangrove landscape filled with a variety of fish, plants and birdlife. You don't even get your feet wet because bridges have been constructed at the creek crossings. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Join us next time when we revisit Normanton, visit Burke and Will's Camp 119, the northernmost camp near the Boyno River, check out the Flinders River on the Burketown Road, and spend an afternoon at Karumba Point, enjoying a spectacular sunset, not to mention the delicious meal we had. Give us a thumbs up if you have enjoyed this episode. Cheers for now. Live life to the full. Rick and Rosemary. R&R, living life.